Wait, Mary, it's me, a voice said. It was my ex-husband. I couldn't believe it. 10 years ago, he ran away with my son's wife, Sarah, and they'd been missing ever since. I never wanted to think about them again, let alone hear from him. But now, after all this time, he called me. He didn't apologize or explain. Instead, he demanded, I'm going to live at your parents' house now. You're still living with them, right? You need to leave my house. I was stunned. We hadn't spoken in a decade, and now he wanted to take over my parents' house to live with the woman he betrayed me for. He even mocked me. So, you're still with your parents? Have you remarried yet? You should move out as soon as possible, he said, laughing. For the first time in years, I felt a wave of anger, but he didn't know one thing: I wasn't living with my parents anymore. I calmly replied, if you're talking about my parents' house, it's not here anymore. Huh? He sounded confused. This moment was a turning point for me. I wasn't the same woman I was 10 years ago. I was determined to stand up for myself. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Mary Kane. I'm 60 years old and work part-time as a teacher at a private school. Even though I've reached retirement age, I continue teaching because I love my job. Maybe it's because of my parents. They were both respected teachers, and growing up, I admired them and wanted to follow in their footsteps. I was once married to a man named Stephen. We were together for years before divorcing a decade ago. It was a painful breakup, and I never thought I'd hear from him again until his call today. Stephen and I met in college when I was 21. I was working part-time as a tutor while studying to become a teacher. Stephen, a new part-time tutor, had just joined. He was older, but I had more experience, so I was asked to train him. As we worked together, we became close and eventually started dating. After 3 years, we got married and had a son, Michael. Life seemed perfect. I found a full-time teaching job after graduation, and Stephen and I built a life together. Years later, Michael grew up, went to a design school in New York, and got married to Sarah. But everything changed after that. We were so happy for Michael when he got married. We wished him and Sarah a wonderful life together, hoping they'd build a happy family. One day, Michael came home unexpectedly. He hadn't visited in a long time since he'd been busy working as a figurine prototype designer, but something seemed to be troubling him. Mom, he started, you're still married to Dad, right? Yes, I replied, feeling thrilled to see him but also worried about where this was going. He hesitated before saying, I saw Dad with Sarah in Brooklyn the other day. I froze. Michael explained that last Friday night, he saw Sarah walking arm in arm with Stephen. They were in Brooklyn's hotel district. On his way home from work, Michael became suspicious and decided to follow them. He watched as they walked into a hotel together. I couldn't believe it. Stephen and Sarah were in-laws, and they always seemed to have a close, father-daughter-like bond, but meeting alone at a hotel? That was shocking. I wanted to dismiss it as a misunderstanding or some kind of mistake, but Michael had proof. He showed me a photo on his phone, clear as day. It was Stephen and Sarah walking into the hotel together, arm in arm. Then, it hit me. That same Friday night, Stephen had come home late. He said he'd been working overtime, but now I knew that was a lie. Looking back, I realized Stephen had been coming home late more often in recent months. He always had excuses: working overtime, going to happy hour with colleagues, or sudden business trips on weekends or holidays. At first, I believed him, but now it all felt suspicious. Could these excuses have been a cover to spend time with Sarah? I asked Michael to send me the photo and assured him I'd confront Stephen. After he left, I waited for Stephen to come home that night. When he finally arrived, he reeked of alcohol. The smell annoyed me, but I didn't back down. I went straight to the point. Stephen, I said boldly, I saw Michael today. Is it true you met with Sarah last Friday? Stephen froze for a moment before stammering, yes, we briefly met. I think I mentioned it, didn't I? His nervous reaction made it clear he was hiding something. His eyes darted around as he tried to read my expression. What did he say? Stephen asked cautiously, clearly uneasy. I confronted Stephen with the truth. Michael said he saw you and Sarah walking into a Brooklyn hotel together, I said, holding up the picture Michael had shown me. Stephen's face froze. His eyes widened in shock, darting around as if looking for a way to escape. He sighed deeply, as if he had no choice but to admit the truth. I can't believe Michael noticed me, he muttered. I guess I got carried away. Stephen, no, I exclaimed, stunned. He didn't even try to deny it. Well, there's no point making excuses now, he said, and then, He confessed everything. Stephen admitted he had started a relationship with Sarah 6 months ago. He claimed she had made the first move, and he had given in. Now, he said his feelings were primarily for her. 6 months ago, Michael and Sarah had celebrated their third wedding anniversary. To think that was when this betrayal started, it left me trembling with shock. Stephen continued without hesitation. That's why I want to marry Sarah. Mary, I want a divorce. His words hit me like a thunderbolt. I could barely process what he was saying. I objected angrily, nearly losing control, but Stephen wouldn't back down. In any case, I'm divorcing you, he said coldly. I can't stay with you anymore. The next day, Stephen never came home. His belongings were gone, and a completed divorce decree was left on the table. Later, I got a call from Michael. He was crying. Sarah had also left him, taking her belongings and leaving divorce papers behind. She had disappeared without a trace. Stephen and Sarah had eloped and vanished. That was how my marriage ended 10 years ago. After the divorce, Stephen and I sold the house we'd shared. I moved into a new home closer to my workplace. At first, I was overwhelmed with sadness and loneliness, but as time went on and I threw myself into work, my emotional wounds slowly began to heal. Teaching had always been a rewarding job for me, and I found peace in devoting myself to it. Over time, I grew close to my students and colleagues, who brought joy and purpose back into my life. I worked part-time even after reaching retirement age, and it kept me active and fulfilled. Stephen and Sarah became distant memories. I thought about them less and less as the years went by. My income wasn't as high as before, but it was enough to support me. Michael also found healing. After the shock of his father and wife's betrayal, he poured himself into his work with passion. Knowing he was doing well brought me relief. Then, one day, the peace I'd built for myself was shattered by a phone call. "Hello?" I answered. "Mary, it's Stephen," came the voice on the other end. It was the first time in 10 years I had heard from my ex-husband. Hearing Stephen's voice after 10 years made me want to scream. I couldn't hold back my emotions. "What do you want now?" I snapped. "You're not here to talk about the good old days, are you?" My voice was sharper than I intended, but it was understandable. I hadn't spoken to him since he walked out on me. Stephen, trying to stay calm, replied casually, Hey, why are you so upset? You're the one who agreed to the divorce. Why are you acting like this?" I couldn't hold back. "You're the one who ruined everything. I don't consider you my husband, and I don't even want to hear your voice." Stephen ignored my outburst and got straight to the point. "Look, you're living in your parents' house, right? I need you to leave. Sarah and I are moving in." His words hit me like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe his audacity. My anger boiled over. "Why are you saying this to me?" I shouted. Completely oblivious to how upset I was, Stephen kept talking. "Sarah's having a baby," he said, "but raising a child is a lot more expensive than we thought. Things have gotten really hard for us." He explained that their relationship had been passionate despite their 30-year age difference, but when Sarah got pregnant last year, everything changed. Both Stephen and Sarah quit their jobs to focus on their new start, but when the money ran out, they struggled to find decent work. They ended up working part-time to scrape by, living paycheck to paycheck. Now, with Sarah unable to work after giving birth, their finances had completely fallen apart. "I tried to ask Michael for help," Stephen continued, "but he refused to see me. I even thought about asking my parents, but they've disowned me too. They're all so stubborn." He laughed, as if it were some kind of joke. Hearing this, I remembered his family, a strict father, a strong-willed mother, and a serious younger brother. I had met them years ago, and I never imagined they'd tolerate such betrayal. How could Stephen abandon all those relationships and expect help now? "So, you're saying you want me to leave my house for you too?" I asked, my voice trembling with rage. "Yes," Stephen replied bluntly. "Sarah and our baby are more important than you. You're just a single woman with nothing going for her except being a teacher." That cruel remark pushed me over the edge. "Get the hell out of here," I shouted, barely able to contain my anger. Had I been too generous in my memories of him? Over the years, I must have softened the truth, because I never expected Stephen to be this awful. I took a deep breath and said in a cold, low voice, "If you're talking about my parents' house, it's gone. It's not yours, and it never will be." When Stephen demanded the family home, I told him the truth. My father passed away 3 years ago, and my mother last year. The house was too big for me to live in alone, so I sold it. I don't have it anymore, Stephen. Stephen was stunned. "Huh? What do you mean? Where do you live now?" I'm not telling you where I live, I said firmly, and even if I did, I wouldn't let you in. Don't ever come here. Stephen lost his temper. What about my inheritance? When your parents died, the family home and the money should have gone to me, right? His words made me furious. How could he talk about my parents' deaths so coldly, only thinking about money? Stephen must have been planning to take not just my savings, but also my parents' inheritance. But he didn't know the truth. My parents, outraged by Stephen and Sarah's betrayal 10 years ago, had disinherited him entirely. When Michael and I told my parents what Stephen and Sarah had done, they were devastated. They had treated Stephen like their own son and trusted him completely. His betrayal hurt them deeply. Before their deaths, my parents made their wills very clear. They left everything to me, including the family home, to ensure people like Stephen and Sarah wouldn't get anything. My father passed away 7 years after the betrayal, and my mother just last year. Although it was hard to let go of the house filled with memories of my parents, it was too big for me to live in alone. Following their wishes, I sold it, knowing they would have preferred it to go to someone worthy rather than Stephen and Sarah. When I told Stephen this, he exploded. Don't play dumb with me, you can't just take everything like that. I kept my composure. I inherited the property legally. Stephen, my parents wouldn't have forgiven me if I let you have it after everything you did. Stephen had done nothing but wander aimlessly with Sarah. He had no right to interfere in my life now. After he realized he couldn't manipulate me, he hung up the phone in frustration. I stared at the phone, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. How could Stephen, someone I had spent years of my life with, be so selfish and childish? He abandoned everyone who had cared for him, then came back expecting help. Just as I was processing my frustration, my phone rang again. It was Sarah. I didn't even know your parents were dead, she snapped. How could you be so heartless and not tell me? They were my in-laws. Her words didn't touch me. If Sarah truly cared about my parents, she would have offered condolences or asked to visit their graves. Instead, her second sentence revealed her true motives. She was only interested in inheritance and money. This only confirmed what I already knew. Neither Stephen nor Sarah deserved to sit in front of my parents' altar. I cut her off mid-sentence with a few sharp words and hung up the phone. Later, Michael called me. Mom, did Dad and Sarah come over? No, I told him, but they called asking about my parents' house and inheritance. On the other end of the line, I heard Michael sigh heavily. Michael called me again. Mom, I thought they might contact you since they came to my place the other day. Michael, are you all right? Did they do anything to you? I asked, worried. I'm fine, Mom. They just banged on my door and made a big scene, but when I said I'd call the police, they ran off. But I have an idea. Michael explained his plan, and I decided it was time to put an end to the cycle of problems caused by Stephen and Sarah, not just for me, but to protect my son, who was starting fresh. A few days later, Stephen called, sounding upset. Hey, Mary, did you do this? You're awfully quiet now, huh? What are you talking about? I replied calmly. Don't play dumb. They're coming to our house right now. Stephen explained that 7 women had shown up at the apartment he shared with Sarah. These women were Stephen's other affairs. Yes, he had been cheating on Sarah with 7 different women. Sarah had no idea about Stephen's infidelities, and when the women began shouting and fighting, Stephen became furious and lashed out at Sarah. Meanwhile, Sarah packed her belongings, and a massive argument erupted. I knew it was you, Stephen yelled. How did you even find out about this? Who knows? I said calmly, but you left me 10 years ago. Stephen, remember that. Stephen, in a rage, hurled curses at me over the phone. I wasn't bothered. Ignoring his tantrum, I said my final words. Goodbye, Stephen. Don't ever show your face to me or our son again. Then I hung up. The chaos Stephen described was all part of Michael's plan. After Stephen and Sarah had banged on Michael's door, he hired a private detective to investigate them. The detective discovered Stephen's 7 mistresses, and that 3 of them were married. Michael shared the information with me, along with Stephen and Sarah's address. Together, we let the 7 women know where to find them, sending all of them to the apartment at once. The scene became so chaotic that the police were called to break it up. Afterward, Sarah broke up with Stephen for good. Stephen was also sued by 3 of the married women's husbands for alimony, amounts that totaled over 6 figures. Stephen lost Sarah, his money, and his home. Now, he's homeless and was last seen by a former coworker at a soup kitchen. Sarah didn't fare much better. Like Stephen, she was ordered to pay alimony in the same 6-figure range. to cover her expenses. She borrowed money from a shady loan company. Shortly after, men in black suits came for her, and she was taken away. No one knows what happened to her. With this, I closed the chapter on Stephen and Sarah, finally returning to a peaceful life. I remain single, but I'm content. My teaching job and the joy of working with students bring me all the happiness I need. Michael has also moved on. He's now dating a wonderful woman with a child, and they're planning a future together. I truly hope he finds the happiness he deserves.